Today, let's make an amazingly popular street food from Galicia, Spain, the place my dad was born. This here is tuna empanada, and it tastes out of this world. It has a mouth-watering filling of tuna, onions, peppers, and tomatoes encased in a savory empanada crust. It looks really hard to make, but it's actually really easy. So sit back, relax, and let me show you how to make a Galician tuna empanada. We're going to start by making the empanada filling. So in a nice hot pan, add 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. And don't skimp here, use the good stuff. Right here I have 1 diced onion and half each of a red and green bell pepper. I'm going to add those to the hot pan along with about half a teaspoon of salt and maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, or however much you like. I'm going to saute this for about 3 to 5 minutes or until those onions just barely start to become translucent. Next, I'm going to add 2 cloves of chopped garlic and cook this for another 30 to 45 seconds. You always want to add garlic after you sweat off your other vegetables. Garlic can burn very easily, and when it does, it takes on a really bitter flavor that's not very pleasant. Now I'm going to add 1 chopped tomato, and if my tomato looks funny to you, that's because this was the last one left in one of my jars of home canned tomatoes that I did last fall. And if you want to learn how to can your own tomatoes, I have another video on the channel that shows you how to do that. Not only is it really rewarding and fun, but you'll save a lot of money on tomatoes. So cook this for another minute or so, and now you're ready to add in 1 can of tuna, which I've drained, of course. So go ahead and put that in, and once you do, you can turn off the heat. And you don't have to use tuna. You can also use salted cod or any other seafood. Really, you can add any other meat you want to this. Chicken, beef, you could even just go ahead and leave it vegetarian. If you are using something like tuna, just be careful not to over mix it and make it mushy. You still want to have visible pieces of tuna here and there. So the last thing you'll want to do with your filling is go ahead and give it a little taste, just to make sure it's seasoned well enough. I found that mine could have used a little bit more salt, so I went ahead and added some. Once you're happy with the seasoning, that's all there is to making this filling. Go ahead and set it aside and let it cool completely. Now we're going to make the empanada dough. And this couldn't be any easier. Start off with 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and to that add half a teaspoon of quick rise yeast. You can use any instant yeast for this. I really like it because you don't have to proof it in water. You can just add it right into your dry ingredients. Now I'm going to add half a teaspoon of baking powder. Yes, there's 2 leaveners in this dough. And 1 full teaspoon of salt. Go ahead and give this a little mix, get everything well incorporated, and now we're going to add 2 tablespoons again of extra virgin olive oil. And like I said before, use only the best olive oil for this. Now I'm going to add about half a cup of water to start. We'll be adding a little more later for sure. And now I'm going to take 1 egg and crack it into this little cup. I'm going to beat it really well so it's nice and smooth. And then I'm going to add only about 80% of it to the dough. You want to leave behind about a tablespoon or so because we're going to be brushing this on top of the empanada before we bake it. That's going to give our empanada a nice golden brown crust. So go ahead and mix all the dough ingredients together. You're looking for a kind of stiff, dryish dough. And I know for sure that I'm going to have to add more water to this to make it come together. How much water you'll need to add really depends on the hydration level of your flour. But I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons at a time. You're probably not going to need as much more water as you think, so add it very slowly. And I can tell by this consistency right here that I'm not going to need to add more water. This dough is coming together just fine, and if you did add too much water, just add a little more flour. The spatula has done all it can do here, so I'm going to finish this off by hand. So any little bits of dry flour left on the bottom of the dough, just go ahead and knead them right in, and the texture of this dough right here looks perfect. And now it's already time to start assembling our empanada. So get yourself a piece of parchment paper, and no, you don't have to knead this dough for 10 minutes, and you don't have to proof it either. You can just work with it straight away. So go ahead and divide it in half. One half's going to be for the bottom of the empanada and the other half's going to be for the top. This here is for the bottom and you want to roll it directly onto the parchment. You might find it to be a little bit of a challenge at first because that paper slides around a little bit. But if you use one hand to hold down the paper and the other to roll, it will get easier. And do try to get a pretty decent circle, but don't obsess over it if it's not perfect. These empanadas are pretty rustic and I know yours will turn out great no matter what. If your dough sticks to your rolling pin at all, feel free to dust it with a little bit of flour, and ultimately you're looking for a circle that measures about 12 to 13 inches. Oh, and by the way, right now you should be preheating your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit or 190 Celsius. Alright, this circle's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to carefully slide this whole thing onto a pizza stone. And if you don't have a pizza stone, that's okay, you can just use a regular baking sheet. Now you'll want to roll the second piece of dough exactly the same way as the first, only now you have to do it over a floured surface. Dust a little flour on top of the dough and just do exactly what you did with the first piece. And right now is a good time to tell you that if you're still watching this, then I'm guessing you probably like the video. If that's the case, let me know by hitting that like button. And if you're not liking the video, then hit the dislike button. But if you're gonna do that, at least leave me a comment letting me know how I can improve these videos. After all, it's only fair, right? Okay, now we're gonna take our bottom half of our empanada and our cooled filling, and we're gonna start placing the filling directly on top of this dough. And you do wanna make sure you leave about an inch border all the way around. So remember, this filling has to be completely cooled, or else your dough is gonna get soggy and your empanada might be ruined. And you wouldn't want that to happen after making it this far. But chances are if you made the filling before the dough, it'll be cooled by the time you're ready for this step. And try not to get any of the filling on that inch of border you're leaving. It can be pretty hard to seal once that gets greasy. Now you'll want to take some water and start brushing it all the way around that border. This is going to add kind of like glue that will seal the edges together and prevent the filling from leaking out. It works really well, and I've never had any of the filling leak out, and I've made many of these. Now it's time to take the other half of that dough and place it directly on top. Try to get the whole thing nicely aligned and start pressing the edges together with your fingers to really seal it. Some people will actually tuck that edge under and do this, but it's really not necessary. Now we're going to take that little bit of egg that we reserved earlier, and I like to add just maybe half a tablespoon of water to it to kind of extend it a little bit. And now go ahead and brush this all over your empanada and be generous with it. Use it all up. This is going to make such a difference in browning it and adding a nice shine too. And one thing that's kind of a must when you're making this type of empanada, take a fork and crimp it all the way around the edge like this. This not only adds a little decorative effect, but it also helps further seal it so that filling doesn't ooze out. And now, last but not least, take a sharp knife and make 2 or 3 slits in the middle. Anytime you make a closed crust pie like an apple pie or cherry pie, this is a must because it's going to act as a little bit of a vent to allow the steam to escape while this bakes. Alright, we're finally now ready to fire our empanada into our preheated 375 Fahrenheit oven for about 25 to 30 minutes. When you see that the crust is this nice golden brown and the filling is bubbling in the middle, you'll know it's ready. And you're gonna be so proud when you see how beautifully this turns out. I must have gotten really lucky today because this one turned out absolutely exquisite. And you're gonna wanna let it rest for about 10 to 15 minutes before cutting into it. Right now that filling is piping hot, and if you cut into it right away, it might all kind of ooze out and your empanada will fall apart. So it's been about 15 minutes now, and I'm gonna just cut into it and show you what a slice looks like. You can see that the texture of the crust is absolutely perfect. It's not too hard or not too soft. This goes great not only as a meal with a side salad or some soup, but it also makes a wonderful appetizer. And you can see that this is still hot, but it's rested enough so that it's not falling apart. And even though we didn't add any fancy herbs or spices to the filling, there is so much flavor in this empanada. With all the beautiful onions and peppers and garlic and tomatoes and tuna, you really don't need much more flavor. And this is such a convenient thing to make because you can eat it cold the next day and even pack it in a lunchbox. I even enjoy it the next day for breakfast. And I have to say, I'm being a little bit fancy in this video here, eating it with a fork. But normally, empanada you eat with your hands. In fact, when I was in Galicia, I didn't see one person eating this with a fork. It is, after all, considered more of a street food. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. Don't forget the full printable recipe is on my blog. I've linked it in the description below. Until the next video, please stay well, be good to one another, and happy cooking.